Hey, so the topic of this video today is going to be a bit different than my usual ones, sort of going to be discussing an issue I have with a generation or two as a whole, and kind of how people act under the influence of social media, of this sort of extremist mentality that's taken over and totally taken over the internet, with revolving around topics of protecting your peace or cutting people off, setting boundaries. I've been in a mentally weird place lately, so I haven't really been making videos, and I don't want to preach what I don't practice, but this has actually been a topic of, how do I say this, agitation for me. I feel like, or I believe as a whole, the younger generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whatever they are now, have sort of adopted this extremist mentality of, oh, this person, they made me uncomfortable, they disrespected me once, I have to cut them off, they're a bad person, damn them to hell. And I think that's really fucking bogus, really freaking bogus, to be honest. This really extreme mentality of, I'm not going to communicate to them because they should already know. And that completely disregards this aspect of humanity, I feel, as a whole, where, the point a major point, and anyway, I believe it's the point, is to change and grow and to learn more and to realize, oh, I did this, let me change that, or let me be better, and then change on top of that. That's the point of being human. You change, you collect more information, you grow, you change. It's natural. You do it physically, you do it mentally, everybody does it. It's a process. And I believe whenever we immediately cut people off for doing doing something that you feel disrespected you, or immediately dropping somebody, thinking lesser of them instead of just communicating it first, I feel that is such an issue. And as a whole, it prevents people from growing and changing and realizing what they're doing wrong, and you're almost robbing people, in a sense, of a chance to grow and learn whenever you do these sort of things, or whenever we as a whole adopt this mentality that, oh, this person did this one thing wrong, gone, out of my life, I need to protect my peace. My mentality is that, number one, the first step, you should communicate, and if this person continues the action, that's when you cut them off. And you can't approach it from a way with this mentality of, oh, you did this wrong, this, like, in their face. Like, you're gonna be like, hey, I want to work on, like, growing and changing. Like, it didn't really make me all that giddy whenever you did this to me, or whenever you did this. Because at the end of the day, even if it's like, a lot of times, these kind of things can be intentional or unintentional. A lot of people don't always realize whenever they're disrespecting you. A lot of people's ideas of respect or boundaries are different, and some people normalize, like, oh, hey, I'm fine with this, so they go about the world assuming everybody else is fine with said thing they want to do, or that said thing they treat others as. And this is, okay, I want to specify, I'm not talking about crazy bad actions. Obviously, if somebody fucks you over in, like, a terrible way, like, by all means, cut them off. Sorry. By all means, cut them off instantly. Whatever. But my gripe really is with the sort of people who are dropping people instantly. I actually used to be like that. I used to be incredibly flighty. Oh my god. Sorry, it's night and I'm walking around. I haven't had my laptop on me lately because I've been traveling. But I used to be incredibly flighty myself. I would very avoidant, drop people, like, instantly. There was a few year period in my teenage years where I just didn't have friends. I didn't talk to anybody. I was just sort of alone for a few years. I was just sort of alone for a few years, and I didn't really have an issue with it, or I didn't think I did in the moment, but over time I had realized, like, I hadn't given anybody chances. And me as a person, oh my god, I couldn't tell you the amount of times I've made others uncomfortable. I've wronged others unknowingly. I've done these things, or even knowingly. I have realized the implications of my actions but I didn't really put the weight of it that I should have in the moment, because I didn't realize the impact it had on these people or others, and I'd been a bit insensitive, for example, or just not as considerate as I could have been until they had brought it up to me. And then it made me realize, and I was like, oh shit, I have been doing this, it's not cool, I've been being insensitive. And just because I'm okay with this sort of behavior from others does not mean other people are okay being on the receiving end themselves, you know? And I'm grateful for that too, when these people have communicated these things to me, because it was I learned from it. I realized things that I wouldn't before, and it helped me in being more empathetic or sympathetic to others and treating others better and considering the implications of my actions before carrying them out, you know? And through these lessons, through people actually communicating to me as opposed to instantly cutting me off or telling me, oh, you're terrible, like go to hell, whatever, I was given the opportunity to realize my mistake, or realize that's not cool, people don't like this shit, whatever it is. And honestly, if people would have cut me off as opposed to communicating with me, I would have been robbed of an experience to learn how to treat the people next, or just learn how to treat people in general. And it's like, whenever we instantly cut these people off, maybe they don't even realize what they're doing is hurtful or insensitive or wrong. Whenever we just cut these people off, we don't communicate, we don't talk, we don't give people chances. Side note, for selective things. If somebody did something awful, I'm not saying that. I mean, giving chances and communicating and giving people the space to change and to know what they did wrong, as opposed to just cutting them off and leaving them like wondering like, what on earth happened? This person just stopped talking to me. This person ghosted me. Or this happened, or whatever. And that's kind of my issue with this extremist. It's what it is, an extremist mentality of dropping people as soon as there's a sign of conflict, not communicating, not giving each other the opportunity to learn from their actions or change or grow. And it bothers me so much, and it's just something that I like to think of whenever I first started really realizing this, because for a while I did this. I had this mentality. It's almost like an infection of like online that like everybody seems to be adopting. But whenever I had this mentality, shoot, I lost my train of thought. 1 second. I don't remember the exact point I was going to make, but whenever I did have this mentality, I was so isolated and alone, and something felt wrong with it, but I couldn't exactly pinpoint what, because in my mind, I was protecting my peace. I was respecting my boundaries, but I was alone. I had nobody. I talked to nobody, and it didn't allow room for genuine human connection, because I'm going to say something that's been repeated 10 billion times. Like, no one's perfect. We're human. That's the point of being human, is to grow and learn and change. And to grow, learn, change. There's nothing left to that statement I need to add. But, no one's perfect. You have to learn somewhere. Everybody has to learn from something, or someone from somewhere. And this mentality that people have to be perfect and people can't change. People, once they do something wrong, like they're damned to hell and they're an awful, evil person. That is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And this also sort of ties into cancel culture. Again, side note, not if somebody did something really bad, but I've noticed it's gone out of control in a sense, where somebody can do something minor, or not a minor, but something minor, or something kind of weird, and then they realize their actions, or maybe it was several years back, they realized their actions, or they realized their actions and they changed. They're still damned to hell by the entirety of the internet, because everybody sort of collected this mentality that, one, you can't change, and two, they want to publicly stone everybody. That's what everybody wants to do. Everybody seems to just want to publicly stone each other, or just fucking death row for anybody who dares make a mistake. And I want you to think about this, like, really quick, put this into perspective. How many if you were a celebrity, how many times, just within the past maybe 5-10 years, do you think you would have been canceled? How many things do you do that would get you canceled, or yeah, just put that into perspective. I think we're very strict. I feel like a lot of the younger generations are very strict with people being perfect, and you can't make any room for mistakes. You have to instantly know what's up or what's good. And something I've noticed is videos talking about topics similar to this. Somebody will say something like, oh yeah, I would have done this at this point in my life, or oh yeah, like it's fucked up. And then people respond like, I'm actually 14 and I would never do that. Guys, I want you to put this into perspective. We are all people who, our entire mentality, our entire brains, everything about us is collected from our upbringing, what we were surrounded with growing up, what we were told was okay, what was treated as okay around us. Or it just goes so deep. It's not just that, it's so much. And sometimes you don't realize what you're doing is wrong. Sneeze edged me. What you're doing is wrong until you have somebody tell you, hey, that's a little messed up. Like, hey, whatever. And that's literally the point of being human, is to grow and to learn. And it just makes me so agitated that, one second. It just makes me so agitated that specifically younger generations don't really give anybody room for improvement or chances or learning opportunities. And it just, for the longest time, it scared the shit out of me, because I held myself to those standards too. I would just be like, oh my god, I can't fuck this up, like, or I'm an awful person. I would internalize that. Hold on one second. I would oftentimes internalize that mindset, and it made me terrified of being in social situations or human connection or anything, because I'd be like, in my own mind, I'd be like, oh my god, what if these people perceive what I'm saying as this? What if they perceive me as being passive aggressive, for example? What if I'm doing it wrong? What if I'm offending people? And that was another reason. I had closed myself off from everybody because of this mentality, and I had stuck myself in this little hermit hole. And I was miserable. I couldn't, for the longest time, form human connections. I couldn't open myself up. I felt almost nothing for nobody. In my own mind, I could drop my care for anybody, again, at the drop of a hat. I know I keep saying that, but that's what it was. And it's not good on either side. There's no angle that a lack of forgiveness and understanding can possibly reach that is justifiable or good or beneficial. Well, there are angles if you're being extreme or really awful. Again, in this video, I want to specify I am disregarding if somebody is just downright awful. I'm talking, actually, just come to your own conclusions. But I'm not talking like things that are open for misinterpretation, things that could be communicated. You know what I mean? I don't have to specify that. But from all angles, it's just not good. Almost every angle, let me specify. And it's damaging, and it takes away this humane aspect from humanity. And it's just been one of my biggest gripes as of lately. I think we need to all sort of save some space to have empathy or sympathy, and to be open to change, or be open to the idea that other people can change, that nobody's just damned to be a bad person, because nobody is better or worse than another person by any means. That's just not a thing, unless you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not gonna say that. No, nobody's better or worse than another person, and some people just aren't aware. And I think that's where we need to start extending empathy, where people in general need to extend empathy to people who aren't aware. And again, I'm not gonna specify that again, but everybody has been raised in different circumstances. Everybody has been raised to believe that different things are normal or good or bad, and not everybody is exposed to an idea at any set point in their life that, oh, this is good, this is bad, I should change this. it's oh my god, I could talk about this specifically forever. It's about your upbringing, what was normalized, what wasn't growing up, what was what. And that's why we need to all extend empathy, or maybe not empathy, but a sympathy of sorts for each other. Educate each other kindly, not, oh, you're a bad person for this, because almost, when have you ever been approached by somebody who's being hostile? Like, oh, you're a bad person for this, and it's something you've believed and known all your life. Like, this is how things are. Like, this is my normal. Somebody approaches you with a hostile attitude, like, oh, you're a piece of shit for this, and you deserve to go to hell. You need to change this by yourself. When does that help anything? When does that ever actually help? Especially whenever something has been normalized all of your life. Now, if you take the time to sit down and be kind to somebody and be like, oh, hey, I don't mean to be condescending or whatever. But, you know, this makes people feel this way. This makes me feel this way. This can be seen as inconsiderate. You have to just, it's about being kind and reaching your hand out and like helping people understand, as opposed to closing it off immediately, just immediately deeming somebody as a bad person. And we sort of do this thing where we dehumanize people in our own minds for not being perfect or good, and we forget to realize this is also another person who just doesn't know. Imagine a point where you were not great. Maybe you could have been a kid, a teenager, maybe you were 20, where you were not a great person, you were not doing great things to others, you were not treating others well. There was a point where you did not know. You didn't know, like maybe your parents were manipulative growing up, or they did something awful to you, so you did it to others because that was normal for you. You didn't realize it. You didn't realize the implications of it. And just try to extend some empathy for people who don't yet understand. And if you communicate it to them and they still continue to act the way they do, sure, whatever, just cut them off. Don't extend empathy. Just don't interact with them. And it could be as simple as that. But I feel like just as a whole, this generation, the younger generations, I think it's like millennials and downward, can just afford to be a lot more understanding. And if you have the privilege of being understanding, like, oh, I realize I used to be like this, or whatever, you don't turn around and not extend that same empathy to others. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, I'd really, this has been something at the forefront of my mind for, I would say, a long time now. But recently I met somebody, and at any sign of conflict, I was ready to go. I was ready to leave. I had believed these things, but I didn't really implement them in my reality. I was still cutting people off at the drop of a hat, whatever. I had met somebody, and any sign of conflict, I would be like, okay, I'm ready to leave. And I know they're going to want to leave too. They're already thinking it. And I would get so scared. I'd be like, there's conflict, like, it's over. Like, there's, like, they're going to leave. Like, whatever. And what I realized was they stayed. Like, we would communicate. We would talk things through. Or I expected them to leave if I communicated. Or just at any sign of conflict. And they stayed. There was conflict multiple times, and they stayed every time, and that confused me almost, because I was really used to this mentality that a lot of younger people have of instantly leaving at any sign of conflict, of running away, of being flighty, of like just going, of being scared. And I think because they stayed, that kind of opened me up to human connection, like the connection with people more. And it made me realize, like, oh my god, I'm not a supervillain for any first sign of conflict, for anything bad, for not being perfect. And they aren't either. It's really down to communicating and changing and staying. And something that would always put that into perspective for me when I was first like implementing this idea in my head was sort of imagining people from an older age, say like, I don't know, I'm gonna throw something out there. I don't know, ancient civilization. Imagine the human dynamics. They weren't going around cutting people off for the first sign of conflict. They're probably like working things out, communicating, just getting mad at each other, which is healthy. Like, that's a bit little. This is all a little bit irrelevant. Maybe I shouldn't be adding this. But yeah, this video is getting very long. I'm gonna cut it to a close now. But yeah, try to extend more sympathy, empathy, whatever it is, in the future. You can't be stuck in this bubble where people are not allowed to do any wrong or change at all, because you've changed. You've been a bad person before. That is almost inevitable. You've never been perfect. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there. You've never been perfect. Nobody else has ever been perfect their entire life. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Anyway, bye-bye. Oh, I hate to say this, it makes me feel so icky, but if you like this sort of thing, I'm gonna be posting more often. Subscribe, like, whatever. I feel so grimy saying that. But yeah, bye-bye, peace.